We're all part of the same consciousness. Divisions are only in our minds. These attitudes most people have adopted allow a few people to control the destiny of the planet. We're due for a spiritual awakening. God save us from religion. Religion is the greatest form of mind control through the manipulation of fear, guilt, and shame. Spirituality is the opposite of religion. These strategies for controlling large populations have been orchestrated for generations. When the World Health Organization, WHO, wants us to line up at the clinics and get our flu shots, they simply whip up a frenzy through the media that they predict a flu epidemic is going to happen next year. They create the problem to get the desired response. We the sheeple react, line up to get our flu shots, and sure enough, there's a flu epidemic. Wake up, people. Gradually, stepping stone by stepping stone, our liberties and our sensibilities erode, and we the sheeple are led down an unholy road, giving our power away at every step in the dance. Frighten them, and the people will demand their power be taken from them. We have grown comfortable at giving our power away and denying ourselves. This is what's perceived as normal, the status quo. Once the mindset is there, it defends the norm, whatever the hassle-free zone considers reality. Mostly we police each other and ourselves. It's not possible for a small handful of people to control and rule the world unless the people are partners in the plan. When one of us doesn't conform, we police each other into conformity through projected guilt, blame, and shame techniques. We maintain the prison at all costs to our peace of mind. What have we the people allowed to stand? How much death and oppression have we tolerated due to our herd mentality? Don't rock the boat mentality. Don't question authority mentality. These attitudes have created mountains of suffering for our fellow human beings and the destruction of many parts of the earth. And what will ever stop it until we face ourselves and awaken to our true self and power? Needing to power over others is symptomatic of a spiritual disease, indeed a weakness, a deep-rooted insecurity of self and mistrust of the universe. Sovereignty is the source of power and authority from which all laws and governments arise. It is the source of power from which all governments are created and abolished. Sovereignty is the central concept behind all political, economic, and legal systems. All wars are fought over the issue of sovereignty. Who is the sovereign? Who will power over another? Who shall prevail? Who makes the rules? Sovereignty is also the intersecting point between the political and spiritual realms. The outer and inner worlds meet as above, so below in the concept of sovereignty. Whoever constitutes the sovereignty constructs government, corporations, banks, and other structures to institute and maintain a power structure that operates under the exclusive authority of the sovereign. Only recently has the concept of sovereignty extended to the realms of the common people, as inherent to all free people organized in a free republic, of and by the people. When the American Revolution took place, the people of each state became themselves sovereign. Historically in the West, prior to the American Revolution and the founding of the United States of America, there were two sources of sovereignty. There were the monarchs, the kings and queens of various European nations, the Catholic Church, the Pope, and the Vatican. Most lineages are still operative as sovereign powers in the world today, along with many other overlapping and sometimes competing power structures. Historically in the East, dating back thousands of years, there were kings and queens, emperors, nomadic barbarians, and benevolent tribal peoples. Common to both West and East is that most of the common people had no rights or recourse against the sovereign. Rule was absolute and justice was swift and often ruthless. Sovereign powers have destroyed thousands of indigenous tribes and hundreds of sovereign nations through colonialism, war, slavery, disease, and economic subjugation since the dawn of time. History is replete with examples of sovereigns and whole nations powering over others for their own economic and political benefit. Sovereign, supreme, absolute, uncontrollable power and authority over a body politic, freedom from external control, superior power owing no allegiance to another, enjoying autonomy, an acknowledged leader, source of all laws and governments, organizes various entities and structures to manage and preserve their assets. subject owing allegiance to a sovereign or other ruler, and is governed by his/her laws. The term is little used in countries enjoying a republican form of government. The British government was created by the sovereign lineage of the monarchy of England. The king and queen are still at the helm of this power structure today, despite their somewhat tainted public image. Although it may appear today that the Queen of England doesn't have decision-making authority with regard to the day-to-day functioning of the British parliamentary government, the Queen of England still represents a long genealogy of power and authority from which that government was created. For example, the lineage of the royal family holds vast assets in various sovereign trusts, with a situs in the Isle of Man, from which they grant property and assets to royal favorites in exchange for loyalty. Although their power has been diminished due to the rise of very powerful central banking families, the royals are still a sovereign power to contend with. Very powerful people had their lands deeded them by a sovereign, including the Virginia Company and the New England Company, which were the first charters in the New World from which the Founding Fathers received their titles and property. The British people are still subjects of the Queen wherever they reside, including countries like Canada. The Queen of England and her heirs are still at the helm of the indisputable, invisible, behind-the-scenes power structure of the British Empire worldwide, although many of her administrative duties have been delegated to the government. The Queen of England is also the wealthiest woman in the world with tremendous power and control over those assets. This example also applies to other monarchies as well as their respective governments. Real from the Spanish meaning royal, pertaining to the succession of king-deeded estate lands, all titles flow from the sovereign, the root of the term real estate. The Vatican government was created by the Catholic Church at the height of its power, with the Pope as a sovereign. The Vatican is an ultra-sovereign canon law trust, from which property and assets are granted to papal favorites in exchange for loyalty. Canon law trusts served as the basis for most democratic and parliamentary governments formed in the New World, including the Mayflower Compact, the Commonwealths, and the Constitution for the United States of America. This represents a long lineage of a power structure that arose during the Roman Empire and continues to this day. The Pope still holds tremendous power today, both over his congregation of Roman Catholics around the world, but also economic and political power through the administration of its assets. The Roman Catholic Church is the largest real estate owner in the world. Much of modern-day colonialism and the settling of the New World arose by papal decree and was substantiated by the canon law. Since sovereignty is the source of power and authority from which all laws arise, each sovereign power created its own system of law and imposed it on others. Laws were passed down from generation to generation, from nation to nation, over a long history. When the sovereign powers colonized the native territories and nations and discovered America, they brought and instituted their own laws. The American system of law blended the laws that influenced it. Both the King of England and the Pope brought their respective laws with them to America. The King of England codified the common law, derived from the Mosaic law of the Old Testament and other natural laws, beginning with the Magna Charta, 1215, the Petition of Rights, 1618, and the Habeas Corpus Act, 1679. This was the basis by which the original colonies governed themselves. 38 of the 48 states based their own state constitutions on the common law of England. Exceptions were that Louisiana based its state constitution on the French common law. Alaska and Hawaii are irregular states, more like U.S. possessions or federal states. The Kingdom of Hawaii was also an independent nation before the overthrow of the Queen and the unlawful annexation. The Pope codified the canon law, which was integrated into the common law, and was the foundation in law from which the Constitution for the United States of America derived its power and the basic tenets of religious freedom. The doctrine of discovery was a papal decree that paved the way for modern colonialism, the exploitation of indigenous peoples worldwide, international law, and the world court system. Common law unwritten, natural law codified in England from the Mosaic law of the Old Testament, Magna Charta, 1215, Petition of Rights, 1618, and Habeas Corpus Act 1679. Canon law, moral rules, and laws integrated from various religious traditions, especially the Roman Catholic Church. Rights given by God through intuition and common sense. Principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Principles of religious freedom in the First Amendment. Sovereign powers design, create, and abolish governments at will. They charter corporations, establish trust organizations and commercial enterprises, engage in war to protect OT, expand their interests, and administer economic controls through central banking systems. Sovereigns are the invisible power structure pulling the strings of all corporations, banks, and nation-states. Sovereigns are more powerful than presidents, senators, congressmen, or other high-ranking government officials. Sovereigns are more powerful than the CEOs of transnational corporations or the governors of the 50 corporate states. Today, sovereign power structures are a complex and mostly invisible network of individuals, business trusts, legal fictions, corporations, foreign entities, nation-states, and central banks. Sovereign powers design, create, and abolish governments at will. They charter corporations, establish trust organizations and commercial enterprises, engage in war to protect OT, expand their interests, and administer economic controls through central banking systems. Sovereigns are the invisible power structure pulling the strings of all corporations, banks, and nation-states. Sovereigns operate from the source of all power and authority, protected by the rule of force, while having access to economic and political power that is largely unavailable to the common people. But we the people have a wild card yet to be fully played. In the United States of America, we the people are the sovereign powers if we reclaim and restore it. In the United States of America, every man and every woman has the inherent power to be a king or queen in their own home, on their own property, without government encroachment or interference. We the people are sovereign American nationals or state citizens, and there is no superior authority. It is up to us to reclaim our sovereignty and reestablish a lawful, de jure government of the people, by the people, and for the people. There is no such thing as a power of inherent sovereignty in the government of the federal United States. In this country, sovereignty resides in the people, and Congress can exercise no power which they, the sovereign people, have not. By their Constitution entrusted to it, all else is withheld. Thank you for tuning into Hidden Sovereign Truth Revealed. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.